Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the absolute most fascinating corporate journeys of our lifetime. Honestly, just picture modern Netflix for a second, right? Millions of people all over the globe firing up the app on their TVs, their laptops, their phones. Think about the sheer scale of it. Global internet connections lighting up, data flying across oceans, delivering massive blockbuster-level original productions right to our living rooms in an instant. It is a colossal entertainment empire. But for today's deep dive, I want us to strip all of that away. Because before Netflix became this total behemoth, it was just a tiny, scrappy startup operating out of a small office, quite literally stuffing physical DVDs into little red envelopes, by hand. And you know what? Their biggest challenge back then wasn't some high-tech cloud computing issue. It was just convincing regular people to change their deeply ingrained habits. So we're going to explore exactly how they managed to do that, and how they completely rewired the entertainment industry in the process. So it begs the question, can one single, massive, incredibly risky decision actually change how billions of people watch movies? It's a heavy question, for sure. But as you'll see today, behind every single major leap in this company's history wasn't a safe, calculated step. No way. It was a massive, terrifying gamble that literally could have wiped them off the map. Let's trace this unbelievable story back to where it all actually started. All right, Section 1, the late fee problem and a deeply frustrating status quo. To really get a grasp on this, we have to transport ourselves all the way back to the 1990s. The traditional rental store absolutely owned the market. If you wanted to watch a movie, you got in your car, you drove to a physical brick-and-mortar store, you crossed your fingers hoping the new release you wanted was actually on the shelf, and then the worst part, you had to remember to drive all the way back to return it on time. Enter our two founders, Reed Hastings and Marc Randolph. They were looking dead at this incredibly frustrating customer experience. Take the famous $40 late fee legend. Now, as someone who geeks out on business history, I gotta level with you here. The origin story, the one where Reed Hastings supposedly comes up with the whole idea for Netflix because he got slapped with a $40 late fee for a copy of Apollo 13, is, well, famously debated. A lot of historical accounts suggest it's more of a convenient, catchy marketing myth than strict historical fact. But you know why that story survived and spread like wildfire? Because it perfectly captured a universal customer frustration. Literally, everyone hated late fees. That singular shared annoyance was the exact spark they needed to ignite what would become a global empire. Moving right along to Section 2, the red envelope startup and disrupting the DVD. Back in 1997, Netflix was basically born out of this grueling routine of packing DVDs by hand. But there was a vital, totally game-changing technological realization here. See, VHS tapes were bulky, they were heavy, and they were really expensive to ship. DVDs, on the other hand, were lightweight, thin, and super durable. That one simple physical property of the newly invented DVD is what actually made an online, mail-based rental business possible. You can see the rapid milestones of their late 90s startup phase right here. Just a year after getting off the ground, in 1998, they launched their early website. And keep in mind, this is the early internet era, so just the idea of buying or renting anything online was incredibly novel. But 1999? That is the magic year. That is the year they rolled out the subscription model. So instead of paying per rental, you just pay a flat monthly fee. This pivot transformed a neat novelty idea into an absolute machine for recurring revenue. The contrast for the consumer was just night and day. On one side, you have the traditional rental stores, meaning late fees, strict due dates, and the physical chore of getting in your car. On the flip side, you have the new Netflix model, flat subscriptions, mail delivery right to your literal doorstep, and the ultimate perk, keeping the movie for as long as you want. So the really crucial takeaway here is that true innovation wasn't actually about having a website or even those famous red envelopes. It was entirely driven by removing friction for the customer. Plain and simple, customer convenience was their ultimate weapon. Which brings us to Section 3, the streaming gamble and risking it all. Okay, I want you to imagine building this wildly successful DVD subscription business. It is working perfectly. Millions of people love it. And then you wake up one day and decide to risk everything you've just built on totally unproven internet streaming technology. This was an existential gamble. The biggest hurdle standing in their way? Bandwidth. Basically, the maximum rate of data transfer across a given path. Today, sure, we take seamless 4K video totally for granted. But back then, internet bandwidth was a massive, almost insurmountable technological barrier. I mean, most homes simply did not have the internet speeds required to stream a whole movie without constant, agonizing buffering. This is exactly why their investors were sweating bullets. Netflix was betting the entire future of the company on a delivery method that the very infrastructure of the internet could barely even support yet. To pull this off, it required investing long before the market was actually ready. Netflix demonstrated this incredibly rare institutional willingness to cannibalize their own incredibly successful DVD business just to stay ahead of the curve. They saw the writing on the wall. They knew physical media was eventually going to die. So rather than playing it safe and defensively protecting their present-day profits, they chose to aggressively bet the house on the future. They didn't wait around for streaming to become easy or perfect. They forced themselves into the arena early. Let's dive into Section 4, Data and Original Content and Building the Moats. Now here's the kicker. If they had just stopped at streaming licensed movies, traditional Hollywood studios probably would have completely crushed them the second they caught on. But Netflix didn't stop. They reinvented themselves a second time. They realized they weren't just a delivery platform anymore, they were a data company. When you map out the modern competitive landscape, it is fascinating. On one hand, you've got a giant like Disney, whose core strength is this massive vault of legacy Hollywood intellectual property, pivoting hard into streaming. Then you've got Amazon, leveraging their sheer unstoppable e-commerce dominance to bundle streaming right into their tech ecosystem. And then you have Netflix, their core strength, data and algorithms. They use the absolute mountain of viewer data they were constantly collecting to inform exactly what kinds of shows they should create. They totally transformed from a tech delivery pipeline into a global content creation powerhouse, going toe-to-toe with the oldest giants in Hollywood just by making their own original shows and movies. And the result of all that? Hundreds of millions of global subscribers. It's honestly staggering when you think about it. This really reveals the monumental scale of their global expansion. By constantly leaning into data and continually having the guts to reinvent what kind of company they even were, they permanently shifted the tectonic plates of global entertainment. Let's wrap things up with Section 5, Lessons in Reinvention, the Blueprint for Disruption. See, this story isn't just a fun history lesson about movies. It is literally the ultimate blueprint for navigating the innovator's dilemma. Any entrepreneur, any business student, anyone really, can apply what Netflix did to their own career. Let's break it down. Step 1. Don't wait for disruption. Create it. If you see your industry shifting, you have to be the one to push the gas pedal. Step 2, and this is definitely the hardest one, be willing to replace your own successful model. Netflix killed their highly profitable DVD cash cow to force the transition to streaming. That takes guts. Step 3, customer convenience wins. Remember how they destroyed the old rental stores? Removing friction and killing late fees was the ultimate advantage. And finally, Step 4, innovation requires long-term thinking. They poured money into streaming bandwidth and original content years before anyone could guarantee it would actually pay off. As the saying goes, behind every successful company is a willingness to change before the world demands it. I think that perfectly sums up the source material we've been unpacking today. Netflix didn't just passively adapt to the future of entertainment when their backs were against the wall. By betting big on the internet, on data, and on original content, they actively helped create that future. So I want to leave you with this to think about regarding your own projects, your own career, or your own business. Are you just waiting around for disruption to happen to you, or are you going out there and creating it? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today. Keep learning, keep disrupting, and I will see you next time.